do all these projects for the summer.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's special session. City of Anamosa City Council Agenda, special session, Monday, March 6th, 2023, 6 p.m. Anamosa Library and Learning Center. 1.0 roll call.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Note, all members are present in chambers. 2.0. Resolution 2023-11, approving the hiring of contracted employee for City Hall to assist with financial reporting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Alan. Council discussion. Public comment. Penny, please conduct a roll vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 3.0 resolution 2023-12, setting salary of interim city administrator / city clerk.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Brooke. Council discussion.
Just quick question. Is it similar to before, the percentage above what you are currently getting, or how? Just explain the
Yeah,
calculation.
so I just took the same salary at that date and added the 3% for the July 1st increases that I think went across the city. So that's how I came up with that.
Any other questions? Public comment? Penny?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 4.0 budget work session. Jeremiah, you wanna take the lead to coordinate the rest of this?
I will just a brief on the front here. I don't care which department director goes first. We're going to kind of we're working with some preliminary numbers here still. Essentially, the revenue side of things needs to be hammered out. The expenses is what we're going to focus on tonight with each of the department directors and let them kind of at your direction. From the last council meeting, we had a budget discussion of just present a more realistic expense budget. And then I guess I'm looking for some guidance and direction from all of you. We do know that we are going to be working with some numbers here for the rollbacks. I was able to determine we're looking at about 35,000 less than proposed on the tax levy for this year. About 36,000 less than the prior year. That's fiscal year 23. So I was able to get the amended numbers from the county auditor. And that is just from the rollback side of things. We do still have to deal with the fact that cost went up and expenditures are going up. So we're not out of the woods yet. We still got to make some good decisions as far as how we're going to spend this money. So I guess any advice or thoughts from the council on recommendations where you might want to see cuts or more money be allocated to as they go through, I would appreciate those comments. Otherwise, there's no particular order. I kind of left it open. Whichever department director wants to go first can go ahead.
Well, I have this one here that says page K-1, which is Parks and Rec Department. It's 3 pages. Looks to me like it might cover the entire umbrella for the park. So without any objections, we'll just have Shelley go first.
Hi, Shelley Carr, Parks and Recreation. Okay. I really went back through and made quite a few adjustments. The first is the Parks and Rec budget. There
Are you
is a bit of an
remember
increase
what
in this
you-
one.
What changes you made on this one in comparison to what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I adjusted the raise or excuse me, the salaries a little bit. One of our full-time salaries was coming out of a couple different budgets. I just put them all in this one. I added training and certifications, memberships to this one. Those are the biggest changes. Otherwise, we left everything very comparable to last year.
You feel comfortable with those figures, Shelley?
I do. I think so.
Okay.
I think, in speaking with the park board, we're looking at taking this year and just doing an assessment of the whole Parks and Rec organization.
Mhm.
We like to audit kind of exactly what we're doing. And honestly, through the Parks Board, do some of our capital projects. They have intentions of doing a public forum and doing a comprehensive plan for our department. So this year, they kind of wanted to see where we fell and really look at things and decide collectively where we can make changes.
Hmm.
And also additional, or I guess, outside funding sources. We're looking at more grants and fundraisers.
Sounds good.
I think the whole park board, as we discussed in our last park board meeting a little bit, some of the, not passing it on to the taxpayers, where some of it we can maybe be resourceful and creative in some of our funding.
So through your assessment, are you looking at kind of coming up with a 5-year comprehensive plan of processes, steps to change things and update and so forth? Okay.
Yes.
Part of that too, if I can jump in, I attended the last park board meeting, and one of the things that was discussed, and it may be a little preliminary, but there is some CDs that are available that we just need to go back through and figure out, look at the origin of those CDs and what the processes and procedures are for just how we allocate those funds, how they're used, how we gain access to them. And there may be some available this upcoming fiscal year that we can pull out and use for certain things. We just want to make sure we're being responsible in the way that we do that. And I really wanted the park board to have some involvement in that. I don't think any one person should unilaterally be able to just access that money and use it on anything in particular. So I do plan on attending the future meetings, and we'll try to get that hammered out so we can potentially have that available.
So if funds were to be pulled from that CD potentially, would it require a budget amendment or?
Yeah, we would have to do that at this time, and we might. I'm hoping we probably won't get the next park board meeting in and make that determination or get that hammered out before we can approve the budget and get it submitted. So it would likely require a budget amendment. If something happens or we do get to it quicker, I may be able to get that before that late April deadline, but I'm not making any promises at this point. That's just kind of quick to get that turned around and figured out.
We have every intention of borrowing from ourselves and replenishing to keep the CD active.
It's a good idea. That's what it's for. I think it's a good idea.
In here, did you leave any security cameras in?
I did not in the
You,
overall.
you took,
I
you
did
took those
take it
out?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
That's one thing also, it should come up for each department. I know that the electronic engineering and they're quoting the Genetec security cameras. One of the things that they had mentioned, however, at the last meeting, for example, was the library, that they didn't need to worry about that because their system could tie into it. So I think that just is something that needs to maybe be looked at a little bit closer. It may be something where we could, if we needed to, potentially go with some less expensive cameras or other equipment, and Genetec could still come in and tie into it. And maybe not either. Maybe we should just proceed with the plan to kind of slowly work that in. But I just thought, I kind of had a glimmer when I heard them say that the library, they'd just be able to tie into that technology. So there may be the possibility to do that. I know that the cameras at the Lawrence Center currently, they would not be able to do that with. But there's a possibility that we could look at other options for other facilities.
Well, I know ADT is protecting the bank that my brother works at, and my shop is completely covered with ADT. They don't have a mainframe sitting at the police station, but they can contact you anytime that there's a problem. And I've managed to forget to turn it off a couple of times, and I had the cops down there trying to figure out who I was. So it does work. So I mean, there's other places we could look. They may be less expensive in the long run.
Not to jump ahead on here, but speaking of that, on page 3, the fourth figure from the bottom, that 48, it's in this current year's budget. The $48,000 was for security cameras.
Okay.
So if you decide to do something in this fiscal year, that still should be there once we get.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions in regard to the park and rec?
Can you provide some detail as to where your thoughts are with the 65,000 on park improvements? What those could consist of?
So we're working on the band shell and also Wapsiana Pavilion at Wapsiana Park with the Rotary. And they were, on behalf of the city, committed $10,000 to $15,000 to help that project move forward. And considering we're not exactly sure where we are this year, I want to make sure that that was covered. So that's what that is. And also we were given a piece of land by Boomerang or Rickliffs for park, with the understanding that we would develop or begin developing within a 2-year period. So I also added some funds so that we could at least start something for that area. The next thing I actually would like to point out is the Aqua Court. The salaries there. We didn't do the 6% there. We did, however, stay in line with other communities. Their seasonal lifeguards are all at $12 an hour around us. That will be Mount Vernon, Monticello will be 2 of the closest, which is an increase. Last year, we increased it a little bit. Monticello and us decided to do a stair step. Mount Vernon just increased it last year. To put it in perspective, Cedar Rapids lifeguards are starting at $15 an hour. So just to kind of stay competitive. And it makes it hard to hire lifeguards when they can go 10 miles over and make quite a bit more. And they did just pass their resolution, their wage resolutions. where they're seasonal. So their concessions and parks are at $10 an hour and their lifeguards are at 12. Monticello
Monticello.
they just did it in Mount Vernon also. And if Cascade hasn't, they had intentions of.
You had, what are your facilities improved? You have 10,000 allocated. But probably can't go too far in.
Showers.
Making them just showers only.
Yeah. Well, no, not showers only. We have a little mud jacking to do over there. But
But early indication is that 10 grand will take care of that.
we intend on using the showers that we currently have in the LCC shower rooms. They're the same that we have at the pool. So if we take those and then actually put the new ones at the LCC because we do need to probably start looking at a new facility, aqua court, and it doesn't make price sense to get new showers if we can get it along for a couple more years. And the last page is the Lawrence Community Center.
Have we checked to see what our liability insurance would do if we had security cameras every place?
We've not. Oh,
Any questions, comments for Shelley?
I think the biggest change is that I took the security cameras out of this Lawrence Center budget.
I did talk with the commercial kitchen
Oh.
guy and preliminary to get the kitchen drawn and engineered the way it needs to be done with the stamp of approval on it. It's going to take about 7,500 to 10,000 to get that paperwork so that you actually can construct it the way that it needs to be constructed. As far as the equipment and stuff goes, we'd have to know what you're asking for, but that can range from very little to a lot. So 75 to 10 to get that engineered and the engineer's stamp of approval on it so that you actually have a blueprint of a design that is ready to go. And, you know, whether he said, equipment's gone up about 7% a year, every year for the last 20 years. He said it's 7% across the board on average. So 10,000, I'd figure 10,000 to get it engineered and stamped.
It's an important part of the community services that go on. It's busy all the time, it seems.
I do have a bid for all the floors and stuff, but I don't have it with me. But I did get that done also. It's all separated into areas, so you can
So we can
here.
do a phased approach.
Yes,
We're trying to do the same thing with the lighting
okay.
throughout the facility.
Well, thanks.
Does anybody have any questions? Are you? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. So next we can go with, the front here has cemetery management warrants, but that's crossed out, so.
No, that's me.
Shane, let's go with you. You've already jumped up there, but itching to get going.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Good evening, Shane Brown, Street Superintendent. Cemetery is gonna stay the same. I did put a note on there that 5,000 is gonna go to new flags and flag poles. I am going to order half of them on this last year's budget. And then order the other half as soon as the fiscal year. So we can get those up and put in. They're really nice. They're gonna be retractable. And they're supposed to handle up to 100-mile-an-hour winds. And they'll come out when we don't need them. And we can cap the hole and mow right over top. So that was all I have for the cemetery. We're not really doing anything else different in there.
Did the street improvement projects include the cemetery roads? Like
No,
gravel needed down there on the bottom?
that
part,
comes
some
out
of
of
the-
just cemetery fund.
And some of the, where you put the asphalt and the,
I may, we're going to be milling some streets and use the millings like we did at the Casey's Park.
hmm,
It seems to hold up a lot better. We don't have the mud.
good.
That was actually a pretty good deal trying that out.
The salary's part-time. Are we hiring that done now?
What's that?
Mowing the cemeteries, we're hiring that done?
No,
No, okay.
we'll do it.
Did you, I know you said you were gonna find or talk to the reformatory. Have you done that yet?
I did, and they were supposed to have a meeting today. The new warden is super excited about getting people out this summer. I've also talked to him about flowers. They're gonna get back to me. But it did sound like it was a go for getting people to come out this summer. But I'll probably hear more in the next week or so, but yep, I had a lot of conversations with them in the last couple weeks.
Well, that
Yeah.
would be a big help in the cemetery.
It would, yep.
A couple
Yeah.
of other places.
Yeah.
They're not very expensive when you go to get them out. Just, I changed a couple things. I did leave my security system in there. But it was in there from last year. The 16.5 was in there for this budget, but then I just left it in there, just moved it right on over. And I raised diesel fuel up about 6,000 just to be on the safe side. And then, yeah, that's about all I've done. We did grind today, and so we got a better product. So come on down.
Do you have a ETA yet on your new truck?
Well, it was supposed to be built March 28th. And then it took a month off, so we're in April now. So maybe June. I'm hopeful by maybe October, November.
There's a new overhead door for
We have a garage door that's got a crease down the middle of it. Yeah. And so we're probably gonna have to do something with it.
From the wind or to get hit.
You know, I'm not real sure how it was there when I got there 5 years ago, but she's starting to do some bowing. Probably can't get it though.
They're coming back around.
Okay, good.
$135,000 on the truck auto. Which one is that replacing?
The oldest one, the 07.
Like plow truck slash dump truck slash.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have all new. All new plow, all new webs. All new electrical. You're starting to have a lot of little minor electrical issues.
The downtown nodes, is that looking to?
Oh, yeah.
500.
I'm sorry, yes.
59,000.
No, it's $6,900. And we're thinking about maybe buying some of those, the ones that come back every the plants.
Perennials.
Perennials, thank you very much. So we're thinking about for every node, they'll get so much money per that node to go towards the perennials, and then the annuals will get through the prison. And I've got a meeting with Tyson's tomorrow, and also I've got to run over to Culver's. But Tyson's wanted to work with us on the perennials.
Good.
Okay, I know I brought this up before, but I've got to ask this question about. You've got your salaries in at 257,000.
Yep.
Right? And then you've got road use tax in general for salaries of 235,000. Which is factored into your total operating budget. But if the salaries are coming out of City Hall, you're kind of doubling up that expense,
I believe it just goes back in.
goes back in.
Yeah, so I pay for the salaries, or some of them. And
Right,
that number goes out and goes back in to pay for everybody.
right, but you've got salaries already budgeted of 257,000. And then you've got road use tax to cover salaries of 235,000. So,
Transfer more or less than,
right, it's a transfer, but you've got it in there twice, so you've actually got 500 and some thousand. As opposed to just the 257.
right?
So. That gives you a little fluff into your budget in that theory.
Right.
I'll take a look at that expenditure report and see how it's in there. 'Cause I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. It's almost like we're double,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, if it's, I have no problem with
Yeah.
it, say you put the transfer in, but then we don't need to list the salaries.
Yeah.
As an expense and then the transfer as an expense.
right.
I'm not seeing those two. I see the one number. Where's the two? I see the 257. Where's the 230?
235, it's on the last page.
Third
kind of
page,
towards the
about
top.
10 lines down or so.
All right.
general salaries.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All's in your cover.
I'm gonna have to look at we'll look at the formula on this specific cell just to make sure that it's not, because it might not be factoring it in too, but
Well-
I mean, just having it in there makes it confusing.
Well, even if it would be below the totaling line with an asterisk
Yeah.
saying, we gotta do this or something, but placing it there makes it look like it's factored into it.
Yeah, I kind of get it. Makes you want to work for the street departments.
Double your money, huh?
Well, it's maybe not so much that as much as, you know, every time he comes and says, I've got room in my budget, well,
Of course.
there's another 335,000 in his budget that nobody else has.
Nice try, Shane.
Hey, it's a win-win for me tonight.
It is, it is.
Shane, we've had a little bit of discussion on street lighting over the years. Have you identified street lighting needs in town where there currently isn't any? And is that in here?
Nope,
So street lighting is basically just a maintenance side of it.
right,
Well, no, you've got $5,000 in there for street lighting,
right, but
which is new street
And
lights.
it says new.
I thought we talked about like different areas, leaving some in there so that if there's dark areas, we can address.
Well, and I know I gave Beth a couple of streets that have no lights on them. But I know that when we budgeted the 15,000 for out in Meadow Ridge, those lights came in a lot cheaper than what was expected. And these lights then in town should just go up on utility poles that are already there.
Even
So-
cheaper.
So hopefully they're even cheaper, yeah.
Mhm.
is that something you want me to call Lion on?
I can give you those streets that I gave Beth and then we can talk about it.
All right,
We probably need to take a look at it.
sounds great.
So all of them, does Alliant like change the bulb and do the maintenance?
Yes,
No matter what kind of light they are?
nope. They handle all those.
We
All
just-
I do have to do is call
We
them.
Put them in, we pay the electricity on
Mhm.
them.
The lights on Main Street though, and the ones out here in the parking lot, we do those ourselves. So the decorative lights on Main Street, the streets department keeps them running, changes light bulbs and all that.
Well, and weren't they on street lights that were burning out? Weren't they converting those to LEDs
I believe so, yes.
as those burned out?
Yep. We just had a street light hit out by Super 8. And I just had to call Alliant and they came out and put a new one up.
What about that wayfinding sign that used to be down at the corner?
So I've called the insurance company and I haven't heard anything back yet. We did figure out it's gonna be about 10,000.
Does the pole get hit or what?
It got completely run over.
Oh, is it all mangled?
We're at it.
Oh,
Down where you
At
veer
the-
off to go to Stone City?
Yes,
Nobody called. and said
on that
sorry.
little island.
No,
Where that like art thing is?
yeah,
Yeah, kind of down in here.
it ended up by the art thing.
So it needs a new pole and cement.
How?
The sign's fine.
I think, no, the sign's not good. I think we're gonna be able to,
yeah.
I think we'll be able to save the cement. We're going to try and heat the bolts up and bend them back. Knocking on
Any
wood.
cameras on these wayfinding stuff.
But I thought he said it was around 10,000 for that, but
Evidently,
they're
whoever-
sure,
evidently whoever hit that didn't find their way.
no. So yes, that's still in the works.
Are you planning to do continuing with I refer to it as Amnesty Day, where you bring your junk down to the street maintenance building and your team assists with disposal of that?
Yeah, and the gagging. Yeah, so we really haven't picked a date. We really haven't talked about it. And I never really brought it up to Michonne, but yeah, we can still do that. The departments were also talking that, water and utilities and us, we're talking that we still need that CSO person, because he really did help. And us departments don't want to put it all on him, because that guy is helping us out and are very willing to take and pay him out of each department. Because that guy, I had 15 phone calls in the first week that guy was making stuff happen, even though it was slower. People were really getting on board with not blowing grass in the street, mowing their yards, somebody being able to check up. And I want to make sure that we can still get that guy. Because last year, the gentleman that was in that position, he went out and picked up stuff and brought it to us. And he brought a lot to us. Now, I don't know if the new guy would, or if we got a new guy, but we could keep him busy. So that's what I'm proposing for the CSO person, that we need him or her
I agree.
to keep the
100%.
city clean.
So you just split it between the departments, so that
Yep.
each department would finance it.
Yep.
It's worth it.
Cause he can do a lot of stuff. He could GIS the sidewalks. He could GIS our piping. He could go out and
Does make a lot of sense. Sounds like a good idea.
I just wanted to bring that up, that, and I've talked to Jeremiah and he didn't know if we could get this pushed through, but if you're all thinking about it, that guy did do a heck of a job. And we just had a place that they cleaned up, 3 months ago? And they took a crap ton out of the backyard. I don't know how many tons it was, but oh my God.
For what?
In town?
Yep.
You don't have to go far to find one that needs cleaned up.
Right. But we still need that person to bust the door and say, hey, clean your crap up.
I'm with you on that.
So since Shane let the cat out of the bag early.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, we have been talking about that for the last few weeks. It's just something that, as we were just brainstorming and realized the position, we would not probably be able to fund it out of the police department's budget. That just got all the other directors talking. We thought there was some special enterprise funds that if that CSO was, I think we would have to reclassify the position, so it wouldn't be a police department position. It would probably fall under city hall or something like that, but we would be able to use funds then from water, wastewater, streets. Police department would pitch in as well, since they were, performing some of those duties, as well as city hall for the zoning side of things. I'm not exactly sure how it would work in practice, but essentially pooling the funds together, multiple departments absorbing it, it might be able to work. And he's right. The one thing I just said was, I just don't know if we're going to be able to do it this year, because we're on a real kind of time crunch to get this pushed through. I'm going to do my best to make that happen. I just know that we only got a few weeks to really make this happen. So we still may have to take a break for a year, but I'm going to see what I can do to see if we can get there.
Sounds like a good plan.
Oh,
It does.
definitely,
I mean, I
definitely.
definitely think it's worth pursuing.
Mm.
the garbage that people put in strange places. It's amazing. And the bushes that they think are flowers and.
So is it
Weeds.
something that you would pad those departments with some funding in this budget?
Some of it, yes, some of it's gonna come again from the special, the enterprise funds, special funds that we would have access to anyways. We would be able to just allocate it to those things, provided it meets legal criteria that we can use it for that. And then other departments such as mine, we don't have those types of funds, so we would have to just figure a percentage in, figure out essentially if we split it 3 or 4, or however many ways, what it's going to cost each department and which departments allocate what amount.
Well, if we freed up some labor for me, I know I talked to Shane about this, but people brought to my attention, other communities like Mount Vernon, Monticello, Macokota, they do the, periodically you put the leaves out to the street and they'll pick them up for citizens, and I don't know, I think that's something that should look, I don't know if we have the right equipment for it, but I think there's a need for that too.
We do, and that's something we're gonna look into this fall or this summer. And then we'll probably put something in the paper and let people know what
Certain
side we're
days.
gonna hit.
Yeah.
And when, because you can't do it all in one day. But yes, that is on my radar for this fall.
Good idea.
Yeah, it is.
I think people are a little less ouchy on their property tax when they can see a real, hey, they're helping me out, they're picking up my leaves. And it makes it
It's the
sound
little
better too,
things.
so.
We'll go with.
Any other questions, comments, for Shane?
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
I don't have anything else. I would imagine departments are going to present.
Thank you.
Just one. Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve Agnes, Utility Superintendent. So basically what I did is I printed off the budget that was presented to you in the council last time. And I went through and I highlighted the things that I felt needed to be changed, and I wrote the changes over on the side, just to make it quick, easy, simple. There wasn't a lot. I'll just walk you through them quick. On the first page, the first one that was highlighted, that is system maintenance and repairs. This is the water. And somehow the decimal got moved, and I put that back to $65,000. That covers water main breaks, valves, hydrants, stuff like that we do for repairs. Rock to fill the street back in, street repairs to pay for the asphalt, concrete, whatever. Down on the next one, down on the water, on the small equipment, I upped that $40,000 for the water meters. We're finding that there is a bunch of water meters out there that are over 10 years old, and we really need to start replacing these water meters because we're losing income. Because the water meter slows down with age. So we need to start. According to Robert, there's several of them out there that he knows of that the register has turned over more than once, and that's a no-go. We need to replace those. Moving on down. That's computer supplies, security cameras, and the SCADA upgrades that we want to do. I tapered back the SCADA upgrades a little bit. I left the security cameras in there like we had before. So I put like $50,000 in there for the SCADA upgrades and 35 for the cameras. Now, one of the options that the water side does have was when well 6 was designed, there was 3 cameras and a server put in the water plant. just last week. So if we wanted to, we could proceed on with at least the water plant. I don't know what the capacity of the server or anything like that is, but we could move forward with the water plant portion and just have it tied into that computer. And it would cover the water plant. It's just an option that I'm throwing out there so you guys know. But I said, I don't know what the capacity is of that computer that they put in up there, how many cameras it'll support. I don't know that stuff at the moment, but we can find out. Second page, I had, it's listed under project construction. It was originally allocated for well 6. I had put 750,000 in there and I decided I'll roll that back just a little bit to 500,000. That's if we decide to fix. There's a couple of water mains over here and alleys that we really need to look at upgrading because there's been quite a few breaks. And it would just be strictly water main projects. Moving on to the third page. Now we're into wastewater. The SCADA upgrades, that's computer supplies. The SCADA upgrades did not get put into that line item. So I put the $50,000 in there. I upped the fuel $1,000. And that's basically all I did. That's the only changes I made from what I presented to you last time.
Steve, you have a comment here on the page 3, alley sewer from reserves, borrow from reserves, SRF funding. Again, my understanding is we have to maintain a percentage.
We're supposed to put so much of a percentage away. We don't necessarily have to maintain because don't have to maintain. They want you to put so much like a 10% away. I don't know for sure if it's 10%, but they want you to put a percentage away. You don't have to necessarily maintain it because that's what it's for. It's to do projects like this.
Okay.
Does the plan to replenish that, what we borrow from them?
If we got both projects, if we got the alley sewer and we got the, let's see, the second, that is under, well, it's hard to read. Second Street Lift Station. That would be $2.2 million that we would take out of the reserves. And the email that Mashan had sent to me, if it's correct, said that we had like $3.5 to $4 million sitting in the wastewater reserves right now. So we haven't been able to completely verify that that's all that's there or not. But that was the intention. And then the borrow for, that was obviously the EQ basin, the big tank. And then the wastewater plant, the press, the phosphorus removal, that was the SRF funding. And actually, I just thought of something else that I forgot to add to this. We should have, because we got the low interest, we got the no interest loan for the design of the wastewater plant improvements. I should have put that on the expenses side. The engineering fees, I forgot to put in there.
How much is that, do you know?
$119,000. That goes. Wastewater. towards page 3. It would be the what? Fourth line down where it's $45,000. So there'd be an additional 119.
Does that match up with the fourth line from the bottom? Cause that is 119. Just curious if it's the same item. Says SRF loan number 1 principal.
I cannot answer that question, but I
Okay, oh, I'm
don't
just
know.
saying that there's 119.
Yeah, yep, I see that. Possibly. We'll have to look at it, but it could be.
If I had to guess, I'm gonna say it's probably not, since that line item has numbers, dollar amounts going
It
backwards
does, doesn't it? Yes.
for several years, that it makes it look like that's a continuation of a principal payment to something.
Yeah.
This must be a coincidence, maybe, of the 119.
Any other questions for Steve on the water wastewater? Thanks, Steve.
Wonder how many copies of this one I have. This is hot off the
Thank you.
press. It well, I fell off my hand. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, my name is Erin. I'm the library director. So to start with, I actually want to go to the last 2 pages of the packet that I just handed you. Let's go ahead and start with that August calendar. So as you can see on here, this is August of 2022. So this was the month that we hired our last staff member. So she does 12 hours a week. And like I said, she started in August. So February, this is last month. This is the amount of programming we were able to do in February. Since our last staff member, just 12 staff hours a week since we've hired her, 46% increase in programming that we've been consistently able to do over the past 3 months. So that's just fun and exciting news I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, so the nitty gritty part, let's go ahead and go through the budget. I kept the 6% increase that the city encouraged me to do so. And then any changes that I made alongside my budget, you can see that it's kind of in that blue highlighted area along the side. So you can see exactly what I had last time and any changes I made after talking with council previously. So like I said, I kept salaries the same, that 6% increase that we had discussed previously. I did add, after talking with you guys, $1,000 to electric, just because I could see that the cost of electric was probably going up, not down. So while I had the opportunity, I increased that just a little bit. And then, so you can see the liability insurance and then the structural insurance did change. I don't feel the most comfy with this change, but then again, the city is the one who kind of tells the departments what the amount for insurance and whatnot is going to be. The reason I'm nervous about this specifically is because we have budgeted 28,000. Last year, it cost me 30,000 for my structural insurance. So I don't think I'm going to have enough this year to cover my insurance. So I'm a little nervous about under budgeting 2 years in a row. So this has changed, but we'll address that later. So like I said, kind of most of this I kept the same. You can see building and grounds really took a cut this year, the 5,000, but we're gonna try and do what we can. And then if you go to adult programs, I increased it by $100. It's still cut, but I increased it just a little bit. And then I increased postage just a little bit. And then just a few things here and there to kind of get them to a more realistic thing. On our children's programming, I got that back up to what we had it budgeted for this fiscal year, because this was previously cut. This was a council request. And then the next big thing I want to draw your attention to is equipment and materials. So this was increased, and this was specifically increased for hoopla. This is a material that we talked about last time, the service that the library offers that gets utilized in a lot of parts of the community. So this was added back. So I have increased my budget just a little bit. So now it's $328,000. I think that we could, if you're looking at that August calendar, I can guarantee that that's what we can do with that amount of money. If you add $5,000, which would cover the insurance that I know we're going to be under, it would cover just a little bit more. I can guarantee that we could consistently offer what we're doing now, which is that February calendar. Is there questions I can answer?
I don't know council's thoughts, but here's where mine are. Insurance is something you can't do. It is what it is. You're at the beck and call of what somebody tells you you owe. I don't see a good reason to run yourself budgetary wise short 2 years in a row when you already know how that's gonna play.
Yes.
But I appreciate.
I'm just trying to do what I'm told to do. So I'll go ahead and increase that for the next time you guys see that.
Also the direction, but it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and it's one of the things you don't get to argue about with your insurance company.
You've got to put in realistic figures.
You do.
If
one
you
of
don't
those
use
is what it is
realistic
figures.
numbers, then you're gonna find yourself short, and then you're gonna scramble and everybody's gonna be upside down. So use realistic figures if you can.
Okay.
And like Rod said, insurance companies, they're not gonna sit there and say, oh, well, we'll discount that for you.
I wish that'd be
Yeah,
nice.
I would love that.
Yeah. We're going to be about
Discount
2,500
double
each year
check.
short.
Yeah.
The only time an insurance company discounts is when they're discounting what they're gonna pay you to do the job.
Yeah.
And now you know why I don't do insurance work anymore.
So the next time you guys see this budget, when you're approving it, I'll go ahead and have that increase to what I think it's going to be. Like I said, that's the directive I had from Michonne. So that's what I did, because that's did what I can do.
Understand.
That's one place you have to be realistic, because it's like Rod said, it's not gonna change.
Anything else? Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darren.
Is that it, or chief, you have one?
Just one more, this will be for the police department.
Out of money.
For the-
What these are getting passed out, that is one thing I would say to the other department heads. You know, to throw a bunch of fluff in here is not gonna do anybody any good. You know, deal with realistic numbers.
Okay.
And I let council say, we want something scaled back.
So the packets that you have are, the way Excel prints these is kind of goofy. You should have, the final 2 pages will be several comments. These are comments just so I can read or relay why I changed cells or put some description in there for you, but it does make it difficult to reference back and forth. So I'll try to just explain these. I have side-by-side copies. The first page, the full-time salaries, that does reflect the collective bargaining agreement. So those were the changes made to that initial amount, as well as the overtime, FICA, Medicare, group insurance, IPERS. Those are all influenced by that number, so that's why those changed. Part-time salaries, I believe we can keep that as last year. We did propose slightly more in the initial, but I think we can get away from that and keep it the same as last year. The work comp insurance, we just got through talking about insurance. I can't dictate a lot of that, so that is what it is. If we go on down to vehicle insurance, it's a slight increase from last year, but it's decreased from the initial proposed amount. I anticipate getting rid of one of our vehicles. This amount does reflect getting rid of 2 vehicles if we get rid of that CSO position. So that's why the reason for the drop from what we initially proposed. If we go down to the communication contracts, it went from 32,000. Yes, 32,005 to 35,537. That's dictated by the county. The next one, telephone utilities, electric utilities, and gas utilities each. These are all estimated at 6% inflationary increase, so that's the difference between those. On the second page, fuel expenses. This one, I wished it had gone the other direction. Unfortunately, it just did not. This is another guesstimate, quite honestly, because we had it set at 20,000 originally. This is not what was reflected in even the last budget I proposed. That was after reviewing our 6-month fuel expenses, which were already well on their way to being over budget. So I bumped that up to 21,200, just anticipating that we're going to be well over. The equipment, so if you go down, we've got $1,000 for equipment for vehicles. That's our striping of our new vehicles. The equipment for vehicles, this is the payment plan of our mobile cameras, car cameras. The vehicles, the first one that you see on here, this is going to be the new vehicle. And the, excuse me, I'm off just one line here. Yes, and then the second one is the lease of our other vehicles. We have 2 of those currently that we're leasing. The plan was to buy these. That I believe that's already been passed through the resolution, so we're prepared to purchase those over the next several years.
How long do we have on those leases? Do you know?
It's a 5-year lease. That was so it was the intention was it would match with the 5-year vehicle rotation, one for each vehicle. Then you'll see a pretty drastic decrease when we go down to the Emergency Services Administration full-time salaries. That is because the former amount that I proposed did include the 2 employees, the administrative assistant and the CSO. The amended only includes the administrative assistant. FICA, Medicare, IPERS, group insurance, that all is reflected in that same amount, the decreased amount. And then if you go down to the training, travel, lodging, all of those are just cut in half also, presuming that there would not be that position. The CSO, the plan for that position was to get them through a certification course. It's not the same as like a engineering course or an inspector, anything like that, but it is just a basic code enforcement training. So if we don't have that position, we wouldn't have to fund that training. Otherwise, the rest of it is animal control, the forfeiture funds, and K9. We do not currently use a lot out of any of those. The biggest thing is the vet contract from the animal control funds. Otherwise, no significant changes. Just the full-time salaries was really the bulk of it.
Your, the line item of telephone utility. Are those any type of specialized phones? Or privacy is just a cell phone?
Just cell phones, yeah.
Be interesting what the city spends throughout the entire organization. Across the year, cell phone.
Might be. Yeah.
There's hold on
something-
the other, you know, I don't know, maybe we have three different providers. We could get maybe one. Could we get a better contract?
So we do have two different providers currently. We were all, the entire city, to my knowledge, this would have been just prior to my arrival or around the time of my arrival back in 2018. I believe we were all US Cellular. FirstNet or AT&T, the division of FirstNet, or vice versa, they have the first responder network, and we'd switched, allegedly could get a better deal for the rest of the city entities if the law enforcement side of things was on FirstNet. And so law enforcement switched, several department directors switched. I believe there were 2 or 3 department directors that had horrible service. They switched back to US Cellular, but some of us kept FirstNet. So during the trade show, the FirstNet worked well for us to keep that hotspot and allow our mobile data terminals to work. Aside from that one incident, I don't know that I've noticed any better or worse service by switching to FirstNet. So that is on my list of things to do, to get a hold of US Cellular and see if we can maybe cut some expenses if we just go back to US Cellular. Because the other problem we're running into is at the police department is our mobile data terminals. They will not operate off of FirstNet's data card. So we're also using US Cellular and FirstNet just within the police department. So it might be beneficial just to go back to US Cellular all the way around, or another provider. Just
Going along
whoever.
with the telephone, something we might seriously look into though is for like the landline portion of things. There's new, you know, like if we had fiber at all buildings where there's a landline, you know, it's voice over IP, and there's a lot more. There's significant savings there. Like ITS Monocell does that, and
We have that at our office.
yeah, and you can
We don't have fiber, but it works.
But you
fine.
basically just need a good internet, and there's a lot of savings. I mean, even with the upfront cost, it's been through, and you can tie it into your cell phone, your office phone rings, it comes through your cell phone. It's a lot more functionality and a lot of cost savings.
But there are some drawbacks to it too, because if your router goes down, your phone system goes down. And I'm not sure that they publicize the phone numbers in like a phone book, if anybody ever still uses a phone book. So there potentially could be some drawbacks to it along that line too.
Well, at the very least, I think it's worth looking into our other options at this
It is.
point. Just, I mean, pennies add up, so, I mean, I think we can explore what's out there, maybe.
It very is. You just need to look at all the aspects of it.
Any questions to Jeremiah on the police budget? Should be all the various departments other than I guess the whole revenue side.
Well, we should get a budget from City Hall too, at some point, I would think.
Yeah, that one is still in the air. That one's the only one that we have left. Essentially, with me just being down there for the last week or so, I did not get an opportunity to take a look at that. I don't imagine there will be a significant change from that at this point. I think the cameras that were listed on that would be probably the biggest change at this point.
All right. Well, I guess that is one thing I would like council to give some thought to is where you feel you need to be an individual vote or as a group as far as the cameras and the security. We've heard a couple of different options and possibilities. It isn't an expenditure that I think could be questioned as far as taxpayers. But you know, that's where you got to do the deep dive to see if something you want in or want out for this budget period. That time to make that decision, then just be cognizant.
Not to put any pressure on City Hall.
Well, but
I did complain a little bit at one of our last meetings that I wasn't getting much information. I'm waiting for Karen and everything, and I'm not, you guys are gonna have to do what you can and as quick as you can, but I need to know where we're at financially so I can make some intelligent decisions. And we really haven't been getting that information. So I think that's our priority right now. The cameras and all that stuff, I don't want to say yes or no to that yet or anything until we know more about our finances. I just feel more comfortable in that.
well, and I think at the last meeting, didn't we push that off for 6 months? To talk about that, but then that should give you time to look at all options. Not just the one that we saw, but there's other companies and there may be some that are local that might be able to do it cheaper, that they don't have to travel as far or something, and I don't know, it's a big expenditure, but I do believe some of that is needed too.
I think it's definitely needed. I think we'd only have to be sued once.
Well, I'm not sure it will protect us from a lawsuit, but
Might help.
I think at like the water treatment plant, it's needed in a big way for multiple reasons.
And at LCC.
And LCC probably could use that. But it's something we need, but how do we go about it? And that's where it's gonna come up to, how can we stair step in? How can we jump in? What are our true options? Not just this one company and their price tag. We should look at all options.
Is that the only company that did this project?
That's the only one I know of.
That's
Okay,
all-
because I pulled 3 of their part numbers off of their packet they gave us. They listed the part numbers and stuff, and they're 50% more than retail online.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So,
They
I
sound-
mean, the part numbers were on it. I just pulled it up and I'm like, oh, you're $200 high on a camera.
No, that wouldn't surprise me.
I think
Thank you.
I think it's a valid point. So I guess, Al, your point, my first priority is just get the financial side of things figured out and try to get going as quickly as I can on that. At least then we can have a direction possibly. And then, step 2 and 3, we'll see, but.
We can make some intelligent decisions.
Yes. But I did have, so as far as what you mentioned, Brooke, the last fall, I had 2 or 3, word gets out that you're looking for cameras or they see it in your public minutes or whatever. I had 2 or 3 companies calling me. Every one of them wanted to sell me their product. One was in California, Verkada. And so there are a lot of people out there that were wanting to throw me a pitch. So I think there's possibilities to explore.
Steve Agnes Utilities, one other thing I wanted to add with the cameras. When we talked about this whole package that was quoted, we also put the sensors for the doors and stuff like that on there. And like the employees would have a fob and could open certain doors at certain times and stuff like that, instead of just having a key. You know, that's something else that could come out of the camera system until later.
Yeah.
Because you could take the entry part of the camera system out, because it was a total security system. It was cameras and then entry into buildings, facilities, stuff like that. So that's something else that, you know, you guys could cut out of it. We could do that later and just put actually just the physical cameras in. It's just one other thing that we could do to trim it up some, so.
As far as that, I do. In my opinion, you need to get that police station roughed in now.
That's already taken care of.
Okay.
And that's a very good point. We just weren't sure. We weren't sure if we're gonna get this figured out by the time they got to that point or not. So in talking to the engineer doing the police station, he said roughing in is the easy part. We'll get it ready to go. Whatever you want, then we can do it later. So that's what I instructed them to do. So they've got it ready, whatever we choose to do.
Yeah, he said they ran conduit throughout the building to the locations where they thought the cameras were gonna go and the servers and
Yeah.
to the
Perfect.
doors and everything.
Yep. So we should be set whichever
Yeah, 'cause
direction.
that costs a fortune later.
Yes, and that's what he said. He said, you know, running the conduit on the front side of things is easy.
Right.
So I just said, go ahead and do it.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? 5.0 adjournment. This evening's meeting is adjourned. Thanks to everyone for special.